You're listening to Sports and More with Chris and Tom.
Welcome back, as the guys with the face for radio and the voices for a silent movie.
This is Sports and More with Chris and Tom. I am Chris.
And I am Tom. And I feel like we should maybe play Hail to the Chief right now because the Washington football team is now the Washington Commanders, which just sounds like either a football team from the XFL or a movie with The Rock in it.
Same thing at this point.
when you make the connection, that the Commanders is like the Commander-in-Chief, it kind of makes sense, but it still sounds goofy. So anyway, I still think Washington football team sounds better than the Commanders, but they didn't ask me.
Hey,
so
minor problem with that Commanders name. The only way you can shorten the name is to call them the Commies. So it's just not a good sounding name. Oh, killed you. Sorry about that.
Well, I might as well go home. Nothing else I'm going to say is going to kill as much as that. Anyway, the real news that we want to talk about is Thomas Edward Patrick Brady Jr. has officially retired from the NFL. Not just what Adam Schefter has pre-tweeted. Ugh. He has actually uttered the words himself on his own Instagram, and really, a week after Adam Schefter had said anything.
A couple days.
We are now just a couple days. Yeah. It felt like a week. Yeah. But here we are now having to figure out football without Tom Brady.
I mean, it's a sad day because I believe we're both young enough / old enough to know that Tom Brady's been a quarterback in the NFL since pretty much we've been able to watch football at this point. So it was a strange day.
More or less, yeah.
Yeah, so it happened yesterday, obviously Tuesday, February 1st. Yeah, the greatest quarterback and player of all time. I think there's not really much dispute, although we may bring that up later on in this episode, but he is retired. I know Saturday, the 29th of January, Schefter of ESPN CNN fame tweeted out Brady was retiring, and then Tom Brady Sr. denied the reports. The Bucs GM, Jason Light, denied the reports because it wasn't official yet. So it's just kind of an odd retirement because normally you wait and let the guy do that himself. And Schefter just said, screw it, I'm going to break the news anyway.
Right, and this kind of alludes back to our conversation that we had a few months ago, not even a year ago, about the
10 months ago.
Aaron Rodgers thing that he had. The Adam Schefter tweet about Aaron Rodgers leaving, and obviously that didn't become true yet, which is a conversation for a different day. Mm-hmm. But it just seems like Adam Schefter is stepping out of line. Like up until, about a year ago, he was probably like still the number one source that if you had said Adam Schefter released the story, I'd say that's a reputable source. Now, Adam Schefter releases a story. My first question is, all right, what's the real story? Right. And we're not going to get into, we ripped Adam Schefter apart the last time, and we could spend 20 minutes doing that again tonight. Yeah. But we want to keep this segment short. As we want to respect what Tom Brady even had said about this whole topic, him as a topic, to not take away too much from the NFL playoffs.
Absolutely.
I do want to say one thing, though, before we move on, that one day prior to his announcement, he had gone on to his own podcast. Tom Brady had gone on to his own podcast and had said that he's pretty much day to day. And then one day later officially announced his retirement. And I think the saying that he was day to day was really to put down any doubts of the sources that did not, uttered the words that were not actually coming from Tom Brady's mouth, and put them down to say, they're not true. Wait for me to call it. And he did it in his own time, albeit one day later. So, again, here we are. No more Tom Brady. We'll figure that out, what that means for football, another time. But for now, Chris, give us a rundown of the conference championship round, which was a doozy.
Yeah, sorry guys, I got distracted. My dog walked in. I don't know how she walked in. My door's not really open, so she must have just pushed her way in to come in the room. So I was confused for a second, guys. Sorry about that. So in the NFC title game, which was the Niners and Rams, and the Rams won the game 2017, and which led me to think one of the games, and both games actually made me think of like questions. I guess Tom, and it caused me to create my own little game show. What if I told you, and have Tom just respond to key tidbits, and what would be his response if I told him a fact? So what if I told you the final score was 20-17? Who would you think had won that football game, sir?
The Rams.
2017, you would think the Rams won a game 2017?
Yeah.
All right.
No, not 2017.
Yeah.
I would have thought that the Rams would have been the winner, but not at 20-17.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. 2017, I think the Niners would have won that football game. That's
Much
like,
larger margins.
Yeah. 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 That's
true. You got a point there. Yeah.
Yeah. If I told you a team possessed the football for 35 minutes and 39 seconds, who would have achieved that accomplishment?
The Rams.
Oh, really? Okay, I would have thought Niners, ground and pound to eat clock.
Talent holds on to the ball.
There you go. Okay. Now, neither team ran for 100 yards in that game. My obvious thought was the Rams win that football game. No team runs for 100 yards, Rams win. It's over.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, because if the Niners can't run the football, that offense is garbage. So, Niners didn't reach 100 yards.
That's a good point, especially at the arm of Jimmy G.
Arm, the more like I don't know what you call a
wet noodle.
A noodle. It's not much of an arm, but we'll go into deeper dive of the Rams obviously before the Super Bowl. We have a whole week for that, so we're just trying to give you a quick update. Rams won. Matthew Stafford first Super Bowl appearance. We'll go bigger into that next week. Now the AFC title game, the game that no one saw coming, the game of games for this weekend. The Cincinnati Bengals, who Tom and I did not pick to make the playoffs this season. Foolishly at this point, we said there's no way, and heck, it's happening. They then upset the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC title game, 27-24 in overtime, mind you. So let's have another segment of what have I told you. And Tom, what have I told you? The Chiefs scored on 3 consecutive touchdowns to open the game. Will the Chiefs win that football game at that point? I mean,
3 in a row. Yes.
Yeah.
I would have said yes.
All right. Chiefs had a 21-3 lead in the second quarter.
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes had a 149.9 passer rating in the first half. Dang near perfect.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
That's off the charts.
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, it's near perfect. I would have said winning.
Now, here we go. Mahomes had a 0.0 passer rating in the second half.
That's laughable.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's I would have, if you had told me that they had a 0.0 passer rating in the second half, I would have asked if he was sitting on the bench.
Yeah, I would have thought the same question, but he ended the game with a 12.3 passer rating for the 12.3. It was atrocious. All right, now what if I told you the Bengals' leading receiver was not Jamar Chase?
That's an interesting one. I would have asked if Joe Burrow threw to himself.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there are a lot of guys people know T. Higgins was actually the lead receiver because they were just doubling Jamar Chase the whole time. Now, we all said the Bengals need to play an absolute perfect game to win this game. What if I told you Joe Burrow threw an interception in this football game?
I'd say don't say no to Joe. He he can still be the man, and right. he proved that he could be.
Yeah.
But I would have been skeptical as to the outcome.
Right.
If I heard that he threw an interception, I would have been like, well, he had to be perfect to get there, so it's not looking so good. Even just one, I would have said it's not looking so good.
Well, especially after Josh Allen dropped 36 points on the Chiefs and lost, and didn't throw a pick. So it's like, well, there you go. That's the game right there. And what if I told you the Chiefs won the overtime coin toss again?
Again, I would have said that Joe Burrow would have had to walk into the locker room like Josh Allen.
Yeah. I mean, all these things happen. You're like, the Chiefs should have won this game, but then the second half happened, and you're like, oh, no, they're not winning this football game. The Bengals are actually going to win this thing.
Oh, no.
It was the strangest game
Not
I've
at all.
watched. It was a tale of two halves, and the Bengals are in the Super Bowl. It's weird to say. We haven't been able to say that since the 80s, and we weren't even alive back then. So this is a first in our lifetime, and it should be fun to talk about next week.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. We are excited to do, and but sad to say, we don't have the Waldex going out to LA to get us
No.
someone
Oh,
on the ground in
man.
LA the week before the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
So we'll have to find another way
absolutely.
to get some insight as to what the energy is like in LA. But speaking of energy, we are going to move on into a new topic that is sure to spark debate and get everybody hyped up. And Chris, I want you to hit that sweet, sweet Fanatics intro because we've got a guest.
Hey, first time on the live show. Let's do it. Fans are nuts and totally insane. Cracker Jack say Fanatics. Oh man, Tom, I love that intro. It's fantastic every time. I know you love hearing it in your headphones every time, even though it's the first time we've done it.
Oh, because I totally hear it in my headphones. But the man that is going to be joining us for tonight's Fanatics um, segment is someone that I have known my entire life. And I mean that I really have known him my entire life. Not one of those friends that you've known since kindergarten, but you say your entire life. I have known him his entire life. Mm-hmm. And that would be my brother, Matt Thompson.
Hey, welcome to the show, Matt. How's it going, buddy?
Hey, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely,
Good
brother.
to see you guys.
It's great to be in person with you. Oh, wait, no.
Yeah.
You guys are being buried by snow. So.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Who would have? I'm going to play a game with you.
Oh.
I'm going to play a game with you guys. What if I told you that Illinois was getting 10 to 20 inches of snow? Would you have figured me up in northern Illinois or y'all in Springfield?
You
absolutely.
absolutely.
I would definitely be predicting you for that one.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get anything.
Yeah. I had to shovel myself out of the parking lot here at my apartment complex, but I did go for a drive. The roads were pretty bad, but all that is to say it's drivable. So anybody going through winter storms out there, stay safe, everybody.
Yeah. I had to shovel myself out too at my apartment.
Well,
yeah, it's bad.
I'm going to go ahead and do my spiel that I do at the end. I'm going to go ahead and say, watch for ice, watch for deer right now.
There you go.
Absolutely.
All right, so the goal behind the segment was Chris had an idea after the conference style games that we should do a segment we haven't touched, even though it was on our list of ideas to do when we first started the show, Tom. I mean, it was one of our initial ideas was a top 10 NFL QBs of all time, and I asked Tom to pick a partner to come up with this list, and he chose his brother, help him out with the list, and so I will listen and they will talk, and I will grade their lists because Tom might tell you guys I watched a little bit too much football and I watched a little bit too much NFL Network growing up. So
I'm a little intimidated because you're the stats guy, and I think I've got a good list here. I think, but you might dissect it, pick it apart, and throw me some red flags or stats that I don't even know about. So
hey, we'll see. We'll see.
This man has watched 100 times more football than you and I combined, Matt. So it's going to be an interesting one for sure. So
Lil said to me, I watched NFL Network in high school when I was just on the weekend. So I watched a little bit too much football. So I didn't just watch the games. I watched the network.
Just a little.
So yeah.
Just a little. All right. Well, Matt, you said you wanted to start with the even numbered ones, but why don't we go ahead and do an honorable mention first? You go ahead and introduce your honorable mention, and then we'll go ahead and then we'll start with number 10.
Yeah, I'll share my honorable mention. You can share yours, and then I'll start with number 10. So my honorable mention, who didn't quite make the list, but is certainly one of the top quarterbacks of all time, Warren Moon, the Houston Oilers. And 6 years in the CFL. Actually, a lot of people don't know that. 6 years in the CFL, 17 years in the NFL. So 23-year career. He actually won 5 Grey Cups in CFL. So their championship, he was basically 5 for 6 in his seasons there. So then 9-time Pro Bowler in the NFL. He's an NFL and CFL Hall of Famer. And by many, he's known to have the tightest spiral ever. So certainly a worthy quarterback, but at such a position as that, there's a lot of worthy candidates. And he didn't quite crack the top 10 for me, but he is worthy of mention. So
fair. He wasn't drafted because he was the wrong skin color in the 1970s. That's the only reason why he wasn't drafted. He was totally worth being drafted. He's a phenomenal guy. I like him as an honorable mention
in the CFL and never looked back.
Yeah, I like him as an honorable mention.
Absolutely great pick. I know that you had mentioned that one before, like when you and I were compiling the list. So 100% agree that he is one of the best, and so he deserves a spot in our segment here. My honorable mention, and I don't know, Chris, being a junkie for football, might disagree with him not being in the top 10, but Roger Staubach from the Cowboys. Being my honorable mention, I know
that's a red flag right there.
That's a red flag. I knew it was coming. Matt and I both talked about it, and we both thought honorable mention. And really, what it comes down to, and you'll see, is I truly believe that we have really since the late 80s and 90s have been living in the golden age of quarterbacks, and for the most part, we have seen a lot of greats, and you'll see, our list goes that way. But Staubach went to in only 8 seasons as a starter, went to 4 Super Bowls and won 2, led the league in passer rating 4 times, and finished with an overall record of 85-29. Which is incredible. And also when you factor in that he was not just good on the field, but he lost out on 4 seasons by serving in the Navy. And he had injuries and concussions and all that piled on top of it. And really he's one of the ones that he's looked up to on and off the field for that reason. Is he in a time when the country needed it, put his career aside and served this country. So that's honestly, I went back and forth on whether I should put him in the list, but man, what a guy.
Okay,
yeah.
So Roger Staubach. Go ahead, Matt.
Unfortunately, the top 10 isn't about the best guys or the quarterbacks with the best moral compass or who serve the country the best, which, as you'll see in my number 10, it's not always the nice guys who make the list.
All right,
but
go ahead.
Without further ado, I'll get started.
Go ahead. I'll rebut the Roger Staubach thing on my list. So you guys go ahead.
All right. Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
I'm sure you will.
For me, drum roll, please. A lot of people are going to be upset with me for this one. I have Aaron Rodgers at number 10.
Reasonable.
3-time MVP, 4-time Pro Bowler. He has 1 Super Bowl appearance in which he won and was the MVP. A lot of people kind of consider that to be his downfall, actually, to have only 1 Super Bowl appearance.
Agreed.
But he is the Packers' all-time touchdown leader. And I looked up his touchdown to interception ratio is incredible. So for reference, his is 4.2 roughly to 1 interception. And before his time, the previous record holder was Steve Young, who in 2005 had a rating of 2.8 to 1. So he kind of blew it out of the water. Certainly a worthy candidate on the field. Now, if you were to ask me, his off-the-field antics were a top 10 candidate, then I maybe not say that. But you also know I'm a Bears fan. So that being said, I do have another Packer on the list who we'll get to later on. But I'll let you go, Chris, and you can explain your thoughts on Staubach and then thoughts on Rodgers.
Well, I'll leave Staubach till I get to my list because I have him on mine, but I'll talk about them. Rodgers is really worthy of being in the top 10. He's one of those picks where I would say he's in that mix to where you say yes, he should be in, and or no, he shouldn't be. He's like that 10-11 range. So I think it's a good spot at 10 on your list.
He's the bubble guy.
Yeah,
he's like the last four in, first four out for the NCAA tournament.
It's a fair spot.
Him being there, you could justify him being out. Yeah, agreed.
Fair spot. All right, who's 9? I want to hear this one.
All right, 9. We've got Steve Young.
Ooh.
And so that one, while widely kind of overshadowed by Joe Montana, to many, he was kind of the equivalent of, Russell Wilson in the day. He was, he used his feet more than Joe Montana did, but he had an accurate arm as well, and so he was kind of a not quite a run and gun, but like a mover and a groover, you could say. He didn't become a starter right away, like a lot of the stars that we will talk about. Fourth season, or no, was it 91? His fifth season with the team, he became a full-time starter.
Incorrect.
Was that what it was?
He was drafted first overall by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and started with the Buccaneers. Left the team after they cut him because he wasn't getting the job done.
So he wasn't a starter with the Niners right away. That's what it was. Is he got drafted, started, but then he didn't really earn his spot with the Niners until about 91 somewhere in there.
He splits time with Montana in the 88 season, and that's when the team was struggling, and they've essentially told Bill Walsh to go fornicate himself, and they need to have a full-time starter, and that's why Joe started the last couple seasons in 89.
Well, and imagine having those shoes to fill. That's, talking about one of the best to ever do it, and then following that up with a quality career high, one of the best to ever do it. Even after that,
still won a Super Bowl as a starter, won 2 MVPs, led the NFL in passer rating 6 times. He's the only player in NFL history to lead the league in passer rating for 4 consecutive seasons, and one of the all-time leaders in rushing yards as a QB too, just because of his ability at that time to use his legs in a way that quarterbacks really weren't regularly known for using them. And so I think that this was one that, because of his achievements in passer rating and kind of proving himself beyond a great that had already preceded him, he had a lot to live up to, and I believe he did. Again, low enough on the list that I think that the guys that are in our top 8 and above are going to overshadow him even at that point, but still worthy of being considered in the conversation of the greatest quarterbacks.
Yeah, and in talking about the top 10, any one of these guys, you could make a case that they're one of the best to do it. There's so many worthy candidates, and it's hard to pick just 10. But certainly, I like that pick with 9 at Steve Young.
It's a bit rich for my blood. I left him out. Bit rich. He's a great quarterback.
Would you have switched Roger Staubach and Steve Young?
Yes, I would have switched those two.
Okay.
But Steve
Fair
Young,
enough.
Steve Young is a great quarterback. His downfall, essentially, he had to deal with the Cowboys in the 90s, so he had to fight those guys to get Super Bowls every year, which hinders him a little, but not much, because you got to think about he only got to 1, and then the Cowboys in the 90s only got to 3. So it was like there was still like a good 5 years of his career he didn't get to any, and the Cowboys weren't necessarily in his way. So that's not the reason I would leave him off. It was the length of his career is why I would leave him off, because he only started for like 10 years, and it wasn't because of serving in the Navy for 4 years. It was because he just wasn't. He just didn't have a great start to his career, is what it really was. So that's kind of why I would leave him off my list. But that's just me personally.
And longevity is also one of the big factors in this conversation, which kind of segues into my number 8, which is Brett Favre. I swear, people, I'm a Bears fan, but I do have 2 Packers in the top 10.
We just don't have greats from the Bears to consider.
Jim McMahon,
Sid Luckman.
but Yeah, Rex Grossman made
Yeah.
one Super Bowl, but that was because of the defense.
Agreed.
But gosh, okay, so Brett Favre, talking about longevity, he was sort of the Iron Man and sort of a poster child of consistency in the NFL in his career. He had 297 consecutive starts, which is a record. 3 straight MVPs in his primes. So I don't, off the top of my head, I don't think anybody, Brady included, has 3 consecutive MVPs, maybe 2.
I think
But
it's 2.
to have that consistency at the highest level, he was the first quarterback to throw for 35 plus touchdowns in 3 consecutive seasons.
Yep.
And talking about other Green Bay Packer quarterbacks, Aaron Rodgers was able to do that twice. 2 consecutive years, but never 3. So just talking about sort of the Iron Man and the poster child for toughness and grit, and for many, the poster child of the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah.
That's probably a different conversation, but Brett Favre edged out Aaron Rodgers for me on our list, and part of that is also due to the fact that he led the team to 2 Super Bowls. He did win only one of them, but he got there in consecutive years.
Yep.
So he was just you could tell when he was at his prime. He was one of the best to ever do it, and did it well for a long stretch.
As much as I don't like he played for the evil green and yellow team, I love his enthusiasm for football, so I like that aspect of him. He doesn't make my list because of the interceptions. He has the NFL record for interceptions. I mean, that he shot himself in the foot more times than Drew Bledsoe did, which is why Drew Bledsoe is not a all-time great, because of Drew Bledsoe kept throwing the ball to the other football team. And so that's why I leave Favre off my list.
I would leave Packers off the list if I could, but Brett Favre is up there. I think
got to give credit where
I have
credit's
him at
due.
12. He's like my 11-12 range, where like he's close, but like I think there's other guys who might be more worthy of that list.
Yeah, as far as guys in yellow, it's SpongeBob SquarePants #1 for me. But behind that, Brett Favre,
Good one.
okay.
Good
He'll
one.
be a good #2 for me.
I like
as
it.
far
That's
as
a good
wearing
one.
yellow.
That's a good one.
All right,
That's a good one.
Zach, I'll let you take it away for #7.
I'm going to use that one. Number 7. So when Matt and I were putting together this list, we actually had our 6 and 7 flipped, but it was the same 2 guys. And so, I mean, really, these are the middle ground guys that we just couldn't decide. 6 versus 7.
Just gotta move my dog. Sorry, guys.
All right. I don't know if we should keep talking or not, but
Sorry, she was crying at the door and wanting to get out.
okay. Oh, you're good. So this is a guy that the next 2 guys I think have very comparable careers, very, very, very good, and I don't think are really a doubt for a top 10. John Elway.
Yeah, he's on the list.
So he's one who had quite a long career and had his. He was elevated by back-to-back Super Bowl wins in 97, 98. He was, again, another relatively mobile quarterback, strong arm, and just looking back at him, he was built like a tank. And to see how he was able to still be mobile and agile and can throw the ball a mile accurately, that showed, I think, that he even early on in his career was ready for a long career. He was the first quarterback to start in 5 Super Bowls. And at the time of his retirement, anyway, Elway had the second most game-winning drives by any quarterback since 1950 with 40.
Yep.
And he had 6 more in the postseason beyond that. So, I mean, this is a guy who was consistently like the game maker, game changer, and really he had an impact on the Broncos organization both during and after his playing career, and was kind of known for being the drive at the last minute and make it happen guy, and that was for the length of his career, the duration of his career, and so to have game-winning drives as one of your records, I think is noteworthy. and really deserves a conversation that in itself because. I mean, now we have others who are in that same conversation for long drives and those who have had even longer careers. But at the time, I mean, to have one of those records for the first time in 40, 50 years, that's huge.
John Elway belongs on this list. Absolutely. I think he's too low on your list. That's my only problem with that.
Low. Okay.
Really? Okay.
Too low.
All right.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
All right.
Well, like Zach said, we have a couple there that we could have switched spots with when we were comparing notes and lists. For number 6, that person that would switch spots was Dan Marino. So
All right.
certainly a long career, 17 seasons, all with the Miami Dolphins. And in talking about longevity and loyalty, that's top of the line. He broke countless records. I think he holds every single one of the Miami Dolphins passing records,
Yes, he does.
including many of those are NFL records as well. He was rookie of the year.
Rookie of the year.
Yeah, edit that out. No, rookie of the year in '83 and MVP in '84. And then this was one of the things I just recognized in doing a little research. Do your research, fellas. 13 seasons of 3,000 plus yards passing, and a total of 61,361 passing yards. 9 Pro Bowls, just countless records. He was the first ever to pass for 5,000 yards in a season.
Yes, he was.
And for many people, this will be a stat that they laugh at, but 420 touchdowns in his career, and just lots of records. Only thing I had against him was the hair. The curls didn't do it for me.
It was the 80s, man.
It was the 80s.
Though. I mean, he was like GQ back then.
Oh, yeah. He
That's
was.
That's right.
All right.
In South Florida, yeah.
Pittsburgh kid. He absolutely belongs on the list. He's on my list as well. He's probably running the right spot. I'm not going to tell you where I have him on mine, just to give you guys a little heads up. But something he's left out about the '84 season, his MVP season. He threw for 5,000 yards, like Matt said. Threw for 48 passing touchdowns, which was a record by 12 touchdowns. He essentially obliterated that record and had a 108.9 passer rating. Oh, yeah, and was sacked 13 times on 564 dropbacks. That's insane. That's near impossible.
Wow. Well, and that's also a testament to his good offensive line. Good coaching. But agreed, he's top 6, top 10, certainly belongs in there.
Absolutely. Rocket arm, best release of any quarterback of all time. Everyone says if you watch his release time, it's like 0.3 seconds. It's like Tom Brady level in the 80s. It's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to see that being done and it's still holding up over all these years, and that's just a testament to how good he really was. And now, speaking of something that's going to hold up for some time, number 5 on our list, in our top 5, we agreed on 100%. So when you disagree with us, not if, when you disagree with us, Chris, you're disagreeing with both of us, not just.
I already see it coming. I already look at my list. There's guys left off. I'm right.
Yeah.
Starting to have worries.
Yeah. So number 5 for both of us was going to be Drew Brees. And that one, we kind of figured, he's underrated by, in general by folks across the league. But he holds the passing record. 74,437 passing yards.
No, that's not the record.
Had at the time when he said it in his career, had set the passing record. That's what I mean. But it didn't come flashy. He kind of worked hard for it for a long time, and he was considered by most to be kind of like the duct tape of the NFL. He's good for every occasion. He was generally durable, but he wasn't the best looking. Wasn't the biggest. Didn't have the strongest presence. Didn't have the super accurate arm, but he got the job done. And he did it well. He led to Super Bowls.
Super
He
Bowl.
won one
led
Super
to
Bowl.
a Super Bowl. He led to
Yeah,
a Super
yeah,
Bowl. That's what it's.
Yeah. You said
Um,
Super Bowls.
I didn't. I
Super
didn't
Bowl.
say 2 Super Bowls. I know that my audio is cutting in and out. I did not say 2 Super Bowls here.
Okay.
Uh, uh, of the 11 5,000-yard seasons in NFL history, he has posted 5 of them at the time of the writing of this article, which I believe was earlier this year. He's just kind of a do-it-all quarterback and did it well for a long time, did it consistently. Yeah, he wasn't super accurate. He wasn't super strong, but he still got there and did it all with New Orleans and really made a name for himself down there. Highly regarded in New Orleans.
Yeah, and talk about him and the 2005 Hurricane Katrina, and then needing a team to rally around. He was the guy. He was the guy to rally around. And you talk about do it all. I don't know that he was the best in any one of those categories when running, passing, evading the pass rush, but he did whatever it took. And that was kind of a testament and sort of what New Orleans needed at the time.
And I think I had even seen just kind of to that consistency was in his last season, didn't he miss throwing for 4,000 yards, I believe, or whatever it was. I think it was his final season. He missed throwing for 4,000 yards, and that was the first time that he had not thrown for 4,000 yards in a season since 2005.
Yep, that's correct.
Talk about consistency.
All right, so Drew Bledsoe definitely on the list. He's I'm not gonna say he's top 5 because I think that he's a great accumulator of numbers, which doesn't mean as much to me.
Bledsoe's on the top.
No, Bledsoe's not on the list. Bledsoe, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Drew Bledsoe. But Drew Brees is for what he did for New Orleans is immaculate because the Saints are a horrible franchise before Drew Brees and will be after Drew Brees. It's just a bad franchise, guys. It's historically bad. It's horrible. They're called the Aints for a reason.
I mean, talking about yeah, exactly. You got another guy who could make some people's top 10, Joe Namath, who played for the Jets, and the Jets are just like that.
Right.
Horrible
Absolutely.
Before, horrible after.
There's a reason they're called the GD Jets. I mean, they just make people upset. So.
Drew Brees definitely belongs on the list. I don't know about 5, but especially what he did in his career is absolutely immaculate.
I figured you'd go there.
But the fact he made it through the Saints, actually blew out his shoulder with the Chargers, got replaced for Phillip Rivers, and then he was passed over by the Dolphins because Nick Saban didn't think his arm was going to hold up. It's an immaculate story. So story alone, absolutely is a top 5 story, but I'm not sure career-wise is he top 5.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I know that one was going to be debatable.
Yeah, I hear you on that one. And speaking of top stories in the NFL and top stories with quarterbacks, for number 4, we have Johnny Unitas, a 9th-round draft pick by the Steelers. He was cut by the Steelers. He played semi-pro for $6 a game, and then was picked up by the Baltimore Colts to be a backup. And just like many backups, got his chance with an injury and kind of never looked back. He played 18 seasons, had 10 Pro Bowls, was the NFL Player of the Year, sort of the equivalent of the MVP. He had that 3 times, and then sort of Mr. Clutch in what is by many considered the greatest game ever played in the 1958 championship game. So, being from this generation of quarterbacks, we have a little bit of bias, and we didn't have the opportunity to see quarterbacks like Johnny Unitas play. But certainly from the stories you hear, the numbers are there, the stats back it up, the story is there. So for us, he's our top 5 and in our 4 spot today with our top 10 picks.
Just about a perfect spot for Johnny U. I love you guys have him here. About a perfect spot. I don't have any complaints about him being 4. He belongs in the top 5. He's a phenomenal guy. Innovator of the 2-minute offense. The 2-minute offense didn't exist before Johnny U, and he still holds the record for passing yards. He has the record for leading the NFL in passing yards for 4 consecutive seasons, a record that has not been broken yet. And he had the longest record for passing touchdowns games with a passing touchdown at 47. So he had 47 straight games with a passing touchdown while averaging 29 pass attempts in a game. So he was doing it, throwing the ball little compared to what we do now. So
he was probably one of the pioneers for the air raid offenses, and NFL as we see it now. So.
And the traditional drop back. He's the original drop back passer. So definitely love him on your list. Good pick. No complaints.
Thanks. Glad we have your
right. We got one right.
No complaints.
So we might have screwed up the rest, but we got the one right.
Yeah,
so.
no complaint.
All right.
It's subjective.
Number 3, another one that we, in our generation got to see a lot of playing time from, Peyton Manning.
Yep.
And he's one that beat our Bears in the Super Bowl. As much as we hate to talk about it, what was that? 06?
Yeah, 06 season. Yeah.
06 or 07?
2007
06.
was the Super Bowl date, but 2006 was the season.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, at the top of the football, just the way things work. But top of lists, or in the top of the list when you're talking about passing yards and passing touchdowns, he's got 5 MVP trophies. Started in 1988 was when he was drafted, and had a long career. Had some setbacks with the neck surgery and injuries, and having to sit out for quite a while, and we kind of thought that we were going to see the end of him, and then he sort of revived and had some good time with the Broncos, and man, it was good to see him win with the Broncos. Honestly, I wanted to see, after having such a long career and watching him play for as much as we did, again, kind of getting into the football watching years that we were at that age. Or was around like when we could kind of start understanding the game a little bit more and watch more, was around the time that he was getting his shot. And so to see him end on the note that he did, coming back and kind of proving that when you're old and have injuries and have surgery, you can still do good things. And, doing that in Colorado in Denver was amazing for him. I'm sure that Colts fans would have preferred that he would have ended his career on a high note in Indy, but as true Manning fans, you'll be happy that he did it anywhere. And personally, I think just the longevity, the consistency, and the comeback from the severe valley that he had to come out on the peak that he did, I think it is worthy of a conversation to have him in the top 5. So that's why he is at our third position.
Again, no complaints about a perfect spot you can have him in. This is a spot where most people have him in as 3. I can't agree. I couldn't agree. I'm not sure if that's. I'm not saying that's where I have him. I'm just saying that's about the perfect spot for Peyton Manning. I agree. I agree with the pick. I agree with him being top 5. I agree with the spot. Pretty much with the spot. I'm not going to say much.
Yeah, wasn't he just a little side note for Peyton Manning? Was he a number 1 pick?
Yep, first overall draft pick. Yeah.
Was Peyton Manning a number 1 pick? I want to say I can't remember. There might have been a few others that have made the list in that draft, but he was one of the main examples of a number 1 pick that actually panned out.
Yeah.
A lot of guys on this list were low round picks, kind of had little pressure, if any, because they were little and low expectations, but the expectations were pretty high, and Peyton fulfilled them.
On your list,
he certainly makes the list and is high up there on it.
Just another side note about Peyton Manning. You'll have to fact check this later on, but he did also. This is not a fact check moment. He did play baseball at the University of Tennessee, and was highly considered to go to the MLB as well. And actually, at Tennessee, this is what you might have to check into. Started over future longtime starter for the Colorado Rockies, Todd Helton.
Oh, okay.
So I just little fact there. Not many people know that he was a really good baseball player and almost went to the MLB. So we almost didn't have the Peyton Manning career that we've seen and know to love.
Great career, Peyton Manning. He on your list, he's the third number one draft pick. Steve Young's number one draft pick, and so was John Elway. So he's
Gotcha.
but Peyton is one of those rare number one draft picks who does pan out. It is actually really rare that they pan out. And for the Colts were awful when he went to them. They were a moribund franchise. So what he did with them is fantastic, especially with the Jim Moore playoffs. He was the quarterback for the epic playoffs rant, which I love. So I had to get that in there whenever I hear Colts and Jim Mora and Peyton Manning early years. He was in the dark years with Jim Mora yelling about playoffs.
Yeah, so certainly worthy of the spot. And for number 2, I think our top 2, if I'm correct on this, were not high draft picks.
Correct.
So number 2, I think you'll figure out who number 1 is once I say number 2. But for 2, we have Joe Montana.
Yep.
Joe Cool. He was a third-round draft pick out of Notre Dame, and over 40,000 career passing yards, 8 Pro Bowls, 4 Super Bowl wins, and was the MVP every time. And
3-time MVP.
He had 31 fourth-quarter comeback wins.
Jerry Rice won one of them.
So one of the other things I found out through some research was 31 fourth-quarter comeback wins, and includes the 92-yard drive in Super Bowl 23. So that was sort of capping off him being Joe Cool, Mr. Clutch, perfect under pressure. And then he finished with a career passer rating, which was second in history, and it was rated at 92.3, I believe. So final statistic I'll mention with him was 6 postseason games passing for 300 yards or more. You might get that nowadays. We've got quite a few more Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes games to go, I think. But, that's tough to do and tough to repeat upon. So Joe Montana, worthy of a top 3. And I think unless you're a huge fan of Guinness or the San Francisco 49ers,
Did we lose you? Oh, no. Oh. All right.
Yeah.
Sorry, we thought we lost you for a second there, bud.
Yeah.
No, you're good. And just one more thing to say about it. It's often forgotten that Montana did play with the Kansas City Chiefs at the end of his career, and took the Chiefs to their first AFC championship game, the first one since the AFL-NFL merger. And then just a quick note about current player Patrick Mahomes became the first quarterback in Kansas City to do that since that time. Back in 2018 when he took them to the AFC championship game. Again, even at the end of his career, making an impact.
Absolutely. Perfect spot on your list. There is no argument. He's always the number 2 on everyone's list because the guy who will be number 1 on your list unless there's some major flaw in your guys' list. But number 2, Joe Montana, obviously. Some other stats in the Super Bowl: 11 touchdowns, no INTs. That dang near perfect. 127-point pass rating in the Super Bowl, and he's one of only 2 players to win the NCAA championship and the Super Bowl, and the other guy is Joe Namath. So it's very rare feat. So it's like, hey, he did something no one else has done.
In a couple weeks, though, we might have another Joe to make that list.
Yeah, it could be you have to be named Joe to do both things at this point. If you're not named Joe, it's not happening.
Right. That was my first thought when you texted me that, because I'd forgotten how that, like, oh yeah, Joe Namath, Joe Montana both won NCAA championship and a Super Bowl. Joe Burrow could be the third. I was like, the triple Joe threat.
Won the Heisman either, so
he
could be in his own category, at least for this year, and moving forward with quarterback.
Absolutely. So perfect spot,
Absolutely.
No complaints.
Well, all right, we figured maybe that'd be in the general range that you'd like. Now, number 1, I don't think that there's any question at all about this, but Eli Manning. No, I'm kidding. It would be Thomas Edward Patrick Brady Jr. And I really think that there is even a whole lot to say other than, over 22 seasons, coming from what was sixth round draft pick out of Michigan, and the scrawny, slow thing that he became something extraordinary. And again, coming off of an opportunity that really just presented itself with the Patriots, and that's how a lot of these things happen. If you're not drafted and go right into a starting role, it's you take an inch, or you're given an inch and you take a mile. And he took 22 seasons of long miles and really. I don't even want to talk about stats with him because of the impact that he's had on the game and how well he's done it. He's always consistently talked about. When I talk about the NFL and I say the GOAT, there's only one person that you think about, and that is Tom Brady. And I
used to resent him for winning so much and being a Michigan man.
Yeah.
I used to resent him for being a Michigan man and being the top guy over a Notre Dame guy. But even us Notre Dame fans have Joe Montana at 2, Brady at 1. It's hard to argue with not only the numbers, but like you said, the impact he's had on the game.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't know if you guys have anything else with Brady, but I'll just give you a few because he's obviously number 1 on my list. I mean, most Super Bowl wins of all time, we all know he has 7 of those, which is more than any franchise has. He's appeared in the most. He's appeared in the most Super Bowls at 10, obviously. He has the best winning percentage of any quarterback at 76.9% winning percentage, which is outrageous to think about. And he's the first QB to win the Super Bowl in the AFC and NFC. So it's it's just nuts. There's like 50 other stats we can give you.
And in his home stadium too, right? Because that was the first last year as well. So
I
think if you go, we kind of figured that we could talk about the narrative because we knew that Chris, you would be the stats guy.
Yeah, I'm not going to go all the stats. There's too many. There's like 50 some stats he owns. It's insane.
Because he is the GOAT.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Right.
So I think the only thing people could have said, for him not being number 1 before was that he did it all with one team. The team aspect of it, but he's been proven in multiple decades, multiple teams, multiple conferences. Talent translates. The man in the arena has been the man in every arena, and he's dominated throughout the NFL. So
he has 3 distinct Hall of Fame careers. He can split up his years into 7s, and he's a Hall of Famer in each of those 7 years. It's insane.
Yep.
So Brady is absolutely the guy. I mean, we'll go on about him probably after the Super Bowl. Tom and I will do a segment actually formally recognizing his greatness because we're trying to not make it about Brady, but it's hard to do when we're talking about quarterbacks because it's Brady.
The greatest quarterbacks. It's like, you can't not talk about him a little bit.
Right. The only other person people might think about when you say go Tom is Jerry Rice because he's the greatest receiver of all time. It's not even a competition. So that's the only people might say.
You ask today's generation, though. You ask today's generation, anyone from young, our age or younger. You mentioned the GOAT. They're not going to immediately go to Jerry Rice. Right. They're going to say Tom Brady.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You've got guys in their 20s and 30s that are making Instagram posts with tears in their eyes, thanking Tom Brady for the impact he's had on their lives. You don't get that with anybody else in this top 10 of our list.
No.
So that'll do it. That'll do it for our top 10.
Yeah. Thank you, Matt, for coming on. And, I know this was relatively short notice. I texted you, Sunday to start talking about this.
Correct.
And, we came up with it because we're passionate about the game and we like good football. We like solid football. And we think that the men on the list that we just talked about really played the game the right way, played it for, and did it well. And I think that is for good reason that they're all on our list. But the moment that we've been waiting for since we've started this segment is, Chris, why don't you give us a rundown of what we did wrong. I mean, your top 10.
Okay, so top 10. You guys had a great list. You guys had some older guys on there. I was hoping you guys wouldn't forget, like Johnny Unitas. People forget about him so often. I was hoping you guys didn't forget him. So number
Right,
10 is
there's the
someone you guys
offensive
forgot
bias
because
of the quarterback we've seen.
yeah. So people forget Unitas. I don't know why. They just don't think about it. But I'm going to mention a guy you guys probably don't know about. Number 10 on my list is Sling Sammy Baugh, who played from 1937 to 1952 with the Washington Redskins, now formerly the football team, formerly now known as the Commanders. Yes, the XFL football team, but we'll not get into that. He just some things you guys might not know. He threw for nearly 3,000 yards in a 12-game season in 1947, which is insane because the guy number 5 on the list threw for 1,000 yards. So he was like leaps and bounds ahead of everyone else. He had a 70.3% completion percentage in 1945. The average back then was 45.6. He had a 109.9 passer rating in 1945. The average was 43. He was the leaps and bounds great quarterback of his era. So you had to think eras matter. I know we don't see the stats like, oh, they don't mean as much, but his era, he was incredible. Led the NFL in completion percentage 8 times. And he also, in 1943, interesting stats. He led the NFL in passer rating, intercepted passes. He played cornerback as well as quarterback, and the league in punting average because he was also a punter at the same time. So he was the GOAT of all 3 phases in the NFL in that season. And he won 2 titles. So that's, again, before a Super Bowl, but still it's kind of impressive. Number 9, I have Dan Marino. I thought Marino at 7 is a bit high, but I have Marino at 9 because I'm like, Marino is a great quarterback. Fun to watch.
I think we even had him at 6.
Yeah, what? Yeah, I'm at 6. Yeah, he's great. He's fun to watch, but like, you got to 1 Super Bowl, man. I know it's pre-free agency, but you only got to 1. With how great he was, it kind of knocks him down my list. I'm thinking he should at least get to another one because the AFC in the 80s. I don't know if you guys aren't at the football junkies I am. The AFC was weak as crud in the 80s. They got shellacked by the NFC every time the Super Bowl. So he wasn't going through juggernauts to get the Super Bowl. He wasn't just getting
That's true. Yeah.
So that's my problem with him being higher. 8, Roger the Dodger Staubach, because he missed 4 years with the Vietnam War because he went to Navy for college, so he had to go. So with that came with a 4-year enlistment. Played in the NFL for 10 years. Went in 8 years as a starter. Went to 4 Super Bowls, like I said. But he also was he has the second best winning percentage of all time at 74.6%. So it's insane. He was a winner through and through. And the Cowboys were nothing before Roger Staubach. So the reason why they're America's team is because of Roger Staubach, which is why he goes up higher on my list. Number 7, Drew Brees.
No arguments there, honestly.
Number 7, Drew Brees. That's why I think I said Brees at 5. I think.
5, yeah.
So a little bit high for my list because you guys might have noticed I haven't said someone else on your list right now. So I'll get to him later.
Correct.
So Brees, just a little high. I know. Winning that Super Bowl is fantastic for the Saints. Great job, but it's like. He was a fantastic accumulator of stats, and there's no denying he was a top 3 quarterback of his era. So I had to keep him on the list, and it was a golden age of quarterbacks of his era because you have Manning, Brady, Brees in that era, and Brees is just not thought highly enough because of Brady and Manning, unfortunately. Number 6, someone I don't know how you guys missed, Otto Graham. Played in the NFL. He played from 1946 to 1955, 10 NFL seasons. Well, not all NFL seasons. The Browns were originally the All-American Football Conference, which was or All-American Football League, which was a rival to the NFL. Then the Browns came to the NFL in his 4th season. He appeared in 10 championship games in 10 seasons. Won 7 of them.
Wow.
He is the winner.
Yeah, and we'll probably.
So
we're probably in a situation there where we've got the bias of watching guys that are still in the league, Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, well, very recently, and being able to see all those guys. We have the recency bias, but
that's that's honestly, being honestly, that's kind of what it was. Is, as I was looking through and trying to compile this list. Otto Graham didn't really resonate at all, and so that's kind of why it wasn't even intended to be a snub. It was more like Matt just said. It's kind of like association of the names that we grew up with or recognize.
And I think this is where my NFL Network watching for like multiple years in high school is where I've seen a lot of the old guys like, oh my gosh, these are fantastic, and we need to remember these guys in history. Two other things about him: he had a career 2-to-1 touchdown interception ratio, which in the 40s and 50s is insane. It's like almost impossible. Usually, it's the other way around: 1 touchdown to 2 interceptions. So it's
Right.
insane. And he averaged 9 yards per attempt. 9 yards per attempt. It's insane. He threw the ball down the field. This wasn't thinking and dacking. This was, I'm throwing the ball down the field. Someone's going to catch it. Good luck. Number 5, Johnny U. Johnny U, you guys have him 4. I thought 5 was the best spot for him. And that's just because I have someone else on my list that you guys higher up. You guys have on your list. So 5 for Johnny U. 4, I have no arguments. Reasonable spot to put him. I have no complaints. Number 4, Peyton Manning. Again, you guys have him at 3. I have no complaints. The argument for Manning at 3. I understand and I accept, and it's just a difference of opinions. That's all it is at that point. 3 is a logical spot for him. I don't disagree too much with it.
That's what this is all about, the subjective list that is based out of opinion.
Yes,
So.
yeah, but here comes number 3. This is where I think people forget how great he was. And even though he's on your list, John Elway. John Elway is number 3 all time. He went to 3 Super Bowls in the pre-free agency era with no running back and no defense. Something that Marino said he never had that. Why isn't he on your list?
True, yeah.
But Elway went to 3 with the same qualifications and did it just as well. And he got shellacked just as well as Marino did. I know they both didn't win in the pre-free agency era, but Elway was a stud among studs. He was the thoroughbred because he's what the modern day quarterback looks like with the running and throwing. And don't forget, he threatened to play baseball with the Yankees over play for the Baltimore Colts. He was a first-round draft pick for the Yankees in the 1980s. This is the Yankees of the 80s. This is the all-star dynasty in the 80s.
When the Yankees won the World Series.
Yeah, so they were good back then. So he was a phenomenal athlete. He was amazing. Yeah, he doesn't have the numbers of Marino, but geez, John Elway could win the game when he needed to. And then 2 and 1, Montana Brady. What else can you say? It's just how it goes. 1 Brady, 2 Montana is the proper list. After that, you get to more of the subjectivity of the list, in my opinion. I think that you need to have Manning and Unitas in the top 5. Outside of that, it gets a little bit nitty gritty, in my opinion. So, your top 5, I don't have much to complain with. The rest of it is a little bit more where I have more of my old school pushback. Hey, remember this era for what it was. It's not the same as what it is now. Remember, in the 40s and 50s, receivers could get mugged at the line of scrimmage. They could be flat out murdered, essentially, at the line of scrimmage, and it wouldn't be a penalty.
Right.
So,
I mean, you were talking about Deebo Samuel taking the hospital hit the other night, and if he had been playing in the 70s, 80s, like that wouldn't have been a shoulder shot. That would have been like they're out for blood, sort of a thing. Yeah. So, I think just
crazy to
looking
think
at
how far.
Testament to the. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's kind of crazy to think about how far the league has come with not only penalty flags and the safety measures. It's across the board. The NFL, the NBA, what you used to get away with, before you could get a technical in NBA or a flag in the NFL was, like you said, nothing short of murdering the guy at the line of scrimmage or, punching a guy on the basketball court. I think I'm not going to say that we've gotten soft, but there are safety measures now.
Yeah. Like guys in that era, I mean, I even think about like the Larry Bird era. They would borderline have fights on the court and still get to play. So I mean, like it's sure, and we could talk all night about
guys throwing punches.
How the game has gotten soft. The leagues have gotten soft on that. Just by trying to provide more safety measures and things like that, and old schools boomer funds are all back in my day we used to carry a knife and a sock and really just stick it to them at the line, but that's I think also it's shows innovation of the game in some sense because the game is played differently than it was 20, 30 years ago. And I think that the quarterbacks that are currently playing the game show that because they take a different approach than the quarterbacks of 20, 30 years ago.
Right. And they may make their own top 10 in 10 years from now. You may see guys that are playing now on the top 10 list, but you got guys on this list who are tough and their game would translate well, and other guys who, might not last, whether translating from here to the past era or the past eras to now, in airstrike, high-powered, fast offenses. So who knows?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough. I think it's the hard part because the eras, it's hard to judge the eras. The yards mean different things. Like I said, Sammy Ball threw for 3,000 yards in the 40s. That's the equivalent to like a 6,000-yard season in today's NFL with how great it was back then. So it's hard to judge yardage, which is why I try not to lean towards the yardage when I look at these guys. I try to look at what they accomplished in their eras and say, okay, how great was he in this era compared to this guy's greatness in his era, and how much would it translate?
And that's why also the Super Bowls, the NFL titles, is kind of a great equalizer, because it is a team sport. Obviously, a quarterback is a highly sought after position. It's under a microscope, but it is a team sport. If you can lead your team there twice, that's remarkable. Yeah. Let alone 7 times, 10 times, for Brady, or 4 times with Montana. So.
And so I want to make a comment to that, just that you brought up. I don't think that the individual that I'm about to mention is, top 10, will ever be top 10, may not even be Hall of Fame conversation. But I think Matt Stafford making the Super Bowl, this kind of saves his career. Because we saw him and knew that he had the talent, never had talent around him to really put it all together. But in his first season, Calvin Johnson being the exception.
That's all he had.
But consistent. I mean, he's got a lot more around him now in LA, and look at what he can do with it. But I'm never going to put him in a Hall of Fame or a top 10 list. But proving that he can make it to the Super Bowl does kind of elevate the overall view of his career.
Yeah, I think that's more of a national concept. I think we are Bears fans, so we all grew up watching Stafford just torch the Bears. May not win the game, but you're like, dude, if he was on the Bears, we would win a couple of Super Bowls with how good he is. So I think he's probably fringe Hall of Fame. It depends, because I think Eli Manning's a fringe Hall of Famer. I know it's an unpopular take, but I'm not a big fan of Eli Manning in the Hall of Fame. I don't buy it. I mean, Jim Plunkett.
Chris, I'm going to use your comment here. It's the Hall of Fame. It's not the Hall of the Very Good.
I mean, Jim Plunkett won 2 Super Bowl rings for the Raiders. He's not a Hall of Famer. So the rings isn't the end all be all, in my estimation. It's a great equalizer when you're comparing top 10 lists, but it's not the end all be all discussion point.
Yeah. Well, there you have it. You've just heard our 2 top 10 lists, very different in our approaches to them. Chris, I appreciate you kind of sparking the conversation about this. I knew that you would be very different approach to us, just because we are compared to you, more casual football watchers, and you are who I turn to for a professional and expert opinion about the NFL. So I knew that you would have something to say.
Sports bureau.
Yes. And so, but also I got to thank you, Matt, for doing this on not only on short notice, but just being able to come on to the show. I called you from work yesterday and asked if you wanted to come on and discuss this. And we only 2 days prior, created the list. So, it's awesome to do this with my brother and, talk football. And, it's what I like about doing this show, is doing what we love, talking about what we love, and getting there together. It was fun. Even though we are hours and miles apart, we still came together and got to have a fun conversation about this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate you guys having me. It's a lot of fun. It sparks a lot of thought and conversation for not just this list, but for others in sports and more. So thanks for having me on the podcast, on the show. So I'll go ahead and sign off, and let you guys finish your show. But thanks a lot for having me. I hope to see you guys again soon.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on, Matt.
See you
All right,
soon,
see you
bud.
guys.
Oh, great segment. I love that segment. It's one of my favorites. I'm a football guy, as you know. So, I mean, I want to do top 10 running backs next. Can we do top 10 running backs next? I want to do that one. I can talk positions all day.
How about Chris's take? We'll just do top 10 running backs, top 10 wide receivers, top 10 centers.
I can't do
We'll
that.
do
I can't do O-line. That's impossible. That's dang near impossible.
I know. I'm just saying, like, of anybody that I know, you'd be the one to do it, though.
I
You
could
got that
try.
football
It would
knowledge,
not be a
but,
very good list.
um,
Sorry.
But anyway, we had a good time doing this tonight. A lot of fun, and there will be more top 10s. As we get into an approaching baseball season, maybe expect a top 10
Maybe baseball
list.
Maybe
Maybe
baseball season.
Maybe baseball season. As we get to spring, we'll have to talk about baseball, whether they're playing it or not.
Yeah.
That is also a topic for another day.
Right.
Chris, hit him with that sweet, succulent outro.
Yeah, please follow our Facebook page if you want more information regarding the show. Sorry, I got the like and subscribe on the bottom now, guys. I forgot about that. I know we didn't have a ticker throughout most of the show because we weren't talking about the NFL because we only talked about what's happening in the NFL for like 5 minutes. So it's just how it is. But you can email us also at sportsandmore with CT, capital C, capital T at gmail.com if you want any more information regarding the show.
Absolutely. And if you got a top 10 list that you want us to do on a future show, comment on Facebook, comment on YouTube, or drop us a line on the email. We definitely want to see and do what y'all want to see and hear. So, let us know. We'll do some fun stuff. You can also go to our Anchor page, Spotify, Apple Podcast, all those listening platforms and more. That is why we are Sports and More, is we are on more and more and more podcast hosting sites. What we figured out is like Anchor, Spotify, and Apple Podcast make up like 12% of our podcast listening. So like somewhere out there's another platform that we are not giving due credit.
Sorry about that.
But we just don't know what it is. We don't get that breakdown on Anchor. But anyway, you can download any of these episodes anywhere you go, so that way you can watch and bring us with you, carry us in your pocket, pull us out, and watch us whenever you want. Any future episodes will be on all platforms, but why don't you go ahead and check out last year's Super Bowl episode, because it was awesome. We got to talk with Wendy down in Tampa last year, who was a hoot, awesome football fan. And while we may not have boots on the ground in LA this time around, we are looking forward to a good discussion about the next Super Bowl next week. But as always, like, subscribe, comment, hit that notification bell if you can get it to work. I mean, apparently we're children's content, so you can't.
I don't have as listed as that, though.
Give it a shot.
I don't have any episode listed as children's content. Maybe because we don't swear enough. That's why we're not. That's why we're considering children's content. We're not going to start swearing, guys.
Oh,
sorry, we're not going to start swearing. Kidding, guys, kidding. So, but we like to thank all of you, probably the tens of people to our ridiculous takes and ramblings on all things NFL related, because that's what we did. We were just sports with Chris and Tom today, and Matt. Sorry, sports with Chris, Tom, and Matt today.
Right, that's what we got to do. We got to change up the title of the show when we have a guest. It's Chris Sports and More with Chris and Tom and Matt, or Chris and Tom and Waldeck, or whoever. Happy to bring on another Thompson tonight to talk about some football. Our next episode's creation date will be sometime next week, because we want to do a pre-Super Bowl discussion. Keep an eye on the Facebook page, because it will be on there. And before we sign off, I want to give one more shout out for those that are still listening, still watching, to our buddy Paul. Paul was he's a consistent listener, consistent supporter, likes every post that we've got, and he was voted male citizen sports figure of the year for the Daily Journal out of Kankakee.
Nice.
And awesome guy. I've only met hung out with him in person a couple of times, but he and I have talked and coordinated conversations for the past like 2 years, almost 3 now, and super cool guy. Grew up loving football, watching football, played football, and then since graduating high school has also done scorebook and involved with equipment and kind of like a sports manager for various high school teams in his hometown. So well deserved, and especially for someone who supports our page as much as he does. Awesome to see that. I did post that on the Facebook page. So Paul, congratulations,
Congrats,
buddy.
Paul. Yeah.
And now, until our next episode will air, as always, we want you to stay safe, stay healthy, and watch for ice, watch for deer, and stay out of snowdrifts. We know that that's a new one right now.
That's bad.
And above all, stay free and love those nearby. Love those you spend your time with.
Sports and More with Chris and Thom is brought to you by no one. All non-original thoughts and ideas were properly noted during each segment.